Tonight, on First at 9 this Saturday, the 18th of October 2025. Eye in the sky. President stresses the need to bolster coastal surveillance and protection as narcotics wreak havoc island-wide. Decisive detention. Ministry of Defence orders 90-day detention against Ishara Sewandi, key suspect in the Ganemulla Sanjeeva murder. Food for thought. More profitable agriculture sector through technovation, claims FAO country representative to Sri Lanka and the Maldives. The Golden Pearl. Port City Colombo named the best knowledge zone in the Asia-Pacific region.
Kalin baby soap rupial 90කට. Kalin baby podi හැමෝටමයි.
Homelands Expo 2025 Property Investment Forum and Exhibition. Join us on 11th October, Hilton, Colombo, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Call 0710 111 444.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Drisingha joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now, on your top story tonight, in the devastating wake of a recent uptick in narcotics-related crime, President Dissanayake stresses on the need to bolster coastal surveillance and protection. Addressing the presidential colours presentation ceremony at the Sri Lanka Air Force's China Bay today, the president called on all Sri Lankan Air Force officers to uphold their duty with professionalism and pride, noting that despite challenges, the Air Force continues to maintain its high standards.
The presidential colours presentation at the No. 3 Maritime Squadron of the Sri Lanka Air Force, the commissioning of cadet officers and the awarding of pilot badges took place today at Sri Lanka Air Force's China Bay in Trincomalee. The chief guest of the ceremony was the Commander-in-Chief, President Anurakkumara Dissanayake. Following the arrival of President Dissanayake, the No. 3 Maritime Squadron of the Sri Lanka Air Force was presented with the presidential colours. Afterwards, 66 cadet officers were formally commissioned. The President also presented pilot wings to Air Force officers. During the ceremony, special awards were also given to cadet officers who demonstrated outstanding skills.
The safety of our nation's airspace is your responsibility. The responsibility of coastal security and surveillance operations are also vested with you. Given recent developments, bolstering coastal security and conducting the necessary surveillance operations are imperative. Execution of that responsibility is rendered imperative since illegal migrants, narcotics, contraband and at times even firearms are found encroaching into Sri Lanka's territorial limits. We are aware of a widespread nexus between narcotics and narcotics-related crime sanctioned by certain political authorities and even a few state officials. Its depth and magnitude can be easily gauged. This menace has crawled its way into our towns and villages. Therefore, coastal surveillance operations are imperative to curb this menace. You must protect our motherland and its citizens. You must ensure that this nation prospers by properly conducting coastal surveillance operations. Today, you have been elevated to the status of duty-bound protectors. Our jobs require utmost professionalism. As you might already be aware, the predicament of certain professions today is appalling. However, we can proudly and responsibly say that our Air Force is still strong, successful and professional.
Yadia T5 scooter samaga angal 32 LED TV එකක් නොමිලේ.
The World Education Fair 2025 entrance free. Register now.
Now, on the theme of law and order, the Ministry of Defence has granted permission for the police to detain and interrogate Ishara Sewandi, the prime suspect of the murder of Ganemulla Sanjeeva, for 90 days. Meanwhile, the police have recovered Ishara Sewandi's mobile phone, which had been buried in the Gampaha area. Investigators believe that the device could yield vital evidence and new leads linked to the murder case.
The Colombo Crime Division continued investigations into the murder of Ganemulla Sanjeeva today, taking Ishara Sewandi out of CCD premises for further questioning. Meanwhile, officers of the Colombo Crime Division have uncovered several crucial details from the owner of the Valipanna house, where Ishara had been residing following the murder of Ganemulla Sanjeeva. The 52-year-old female owner of the Valipanna residence, employed as a nurse at the Matugama hospital, had reportedly maintained a long-standing acquaintance with Matugama Shan, a close associate of the notorious Underworld figure Kehelbaddara Padme. Acting upon a phone call from Matugama Shan on the day of the murder, the owner of the Valipanna residence travelled to the Aludgama bus depot on a motorcycle, where she met Ishara Sevwandi and later brought her to the residence in question. Ishara Sevwandi is now being questioned under a 72-hour detention order. Investigations further uncovered that the police constable who was arrested yesterday is the nephew of the Valipanna house owner and had been living in the same house which Ishara Sevwandi used to evade the authorities. Despite being aware of her whereabouts, the constable in question had failed to inform the authorities. Accordingly, he has been taken into custody for withholding information and providing shelter to the then fugitive. Meanwhile, police have recovered Ishara's mobile phone, which had been buried in Gampaha area. Investigators believe the device could yield crucial leads connected to the murder. During ongoing interrogations, Underworld figure Gampaha Baba revealed that he was introduced to Kehelbaddara Padme through Padme's father and admitted to being involved in Padme's drug trafficking network. He also admitted to having kept the cab used by the gunman in the attempted murder of Gampaha Osman, allegedly under Padme's instructions. In another related operation, police have said that during the questioning of Nugegoda Babi, a live grenade and 10 live bullets were recovered, buried near his residence in Jambugas Mulla under the jurisdiction of the Western Province North Crime Division. Meanwhile, this evening, the Ministry of Defence granted permission for the police to detain and interrogate Ishara Sevwandi for 90 days. Separately, a person has been arrested in Nagura area in Kalutara by the Police Special Task Force while in possession with several foreign manufactured firearms. The cache included an American-made 12-bore shotgun, a German pistol with a magazine, a Japanese air pistol and a stock of ammunition.
Now, the recent narcotic seizures and the government's crackdown against crime claims the spotlight of political attention today.
If the education system were more focused on nurturing humanitarians without being limited to examinations, narcotics and crime would not be the threat it is today. This is a massive threat which has to be eradicated through the collective effort of all citizens. The threat posed by narcotics have now exceeded the statistics we observed at the beginning of our tenure. The nexus between narcotics and associated criminal activity was safeguarded by politicians. We do not oppose operations launched against drug trafficking. However, we suspect that the government is attempting to sway the public's political preferences in their favor through these operations. The country does not have enough rice to feed its citizens, but colossal stocks of narcotics are being seized. The honor of apprehending Sevwandi should be awarded to the police. However, the government's attempt at concealing incompetence through these operations is embarrassing. Underworld dons are being apprehended from wherever they are hiding with the assistance of security forces of other countries and the Interpol at an unprecedented rate. When they are being interrogated, they reveal more information on the nexus between narcotics and associated criminal activity. These leads result in more apprehensions. We will bring all of these criminals before the law. If you watch the news and think critically, you will be able to uncover the real perpetrators of these crimes. Certain individuals as such were members of previous governments and are now part of the opposition. Politicians must keep narcotics and politics separate. Everyone has their own political preferences. The incumbent government is attempting to tie certain political parties with narcotics seized recently. The opposition's opinion of the NPP is marred by malice. Almost all of the suspects apprehended over drug seizures are affiliated with the SLPP. Only 1 or 2 are affiliated with the SJB. Incompetent MPs and ministers such as TB Sarath are encouraging these criminals. What is apparent is the disappointing incompetence of those in power. The people who brought them to power must be regretting their actions now. We intend to urge them not to regret but to rethink their decisions multiple times.
Country representative of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, Vimalendra Sharan, notes The transformation of the agriculture and fisheries sectors aligning with latest technology is crucial to ensure profitability. Meanwhile, Minister of Labour Professor Anil Jayantha asserts that food security and accessibility must be maintained while making sure that ethics surrounding food production is bolstered.
An exhibition to commemorate the World Food Day was held in Colombo yesterday. The occasion was graced by Minister of Labour and Deputy Minister of Finance and Planning Professor Anil Jayantha, Minister of Agriculture K.D. Lal Kanta and the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization's country representative to Sri Lanka and the Maldives, Vimlendra Sharan.
අපිට තියෙන එක ප්‍රශ්නයක් තමයි ගොවියෝ මහන්සියල වගා කරන මේ ශේෂ්ත්‍රය ගොඩක් මහන්සියල වැඩ කරනවා.
Farmers and all other stakeholders in this industry work tirelessly to produce food. However, at least 30% of our cultivation is destroyed by wild animals. This is a serious issue. On the other hand, I see a lack of discourse on the food waste at the time of consumption. Traditionally, we are known for wasting a significant portion of our food. A significant portion of our food is also wasted in transit. When all these categories of food waste are added together, we are confronted with a national concern that must be addressed. I believe that the government, together with the World Food Programme, must formulate immediate solutions to these issues. We must do everything necessary to that end.
මෙන්න මේ ප්‍රශ්න ටිකට ඉක්මන් උත්තර හොයාගන්න ඕන. ඒ වෙනුවෙන් වැඩ කරන්න ඕන කියන එක තමයි මගේ අදහස.
We are talking about the different aspects of food security. So that is area where we need to make sure that adequate food is available, food accessibility, quality of food, the hygiene factors of food, and we talk that and so many things in food. And further, if you go to the mode of production, how do you produce food now? We are highly concerned about the way of production as well. Whether it is ethical, socially acceptable, if you use forced labor or unaccepted materials, equipment, then now the world is questioning these things. Whether we produce our things, including food, in an socially acceptable manner and ethical manner. Why? On the other hand, there are things happening to break these ethical concepts.
I think the Sri Lankan agriculture, Sri Lankan fisheries has to become climate smart. It has to adapt to the climate influences, environmental influences which are there globally and definitely in Sri Lanka. It has to become modern. It has to be driven by technology and innovation. We can't rely on the traditional methods of cultivation now and hope that we will become self-reliant. So technology has to come in, science has to come in, evidence has to come in. And most important of all is that it has to be inclusive. We can't leave anyone behind. It has to take the most downtrodden and the poorest along and bring them to a certain level. The world around us is changing and transforming rapidly. AI, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, digitization, precision farming, all this need to find a firm rooting. And as I said, not just pilots, but a firm rooting in the country. And that is the only way, I think, which is in front of us to make the cultivation, make farming, make fisheries more modern, more innovative, and turn it into a profitable exercise. I can assure you on behalf of the Food and Agriculture Organization, and I'm sure on behalf of all the UN, that the entire UN in the country stands in support of the government in whichever sectors we are working in. We are all here to support the government, become government which looks after the downtrodden, the poor, and yet is committed to making the country modern and progressive.
Now, meanwhile, leader of the opposition Sajith Premadasa urges the public to make the SJB victorious at the impending provincial council polls to ensure that at least marginal solutions are provided to pressing concerns ailing the public. He made these remarks during an event in Anuradhapura today.
Another iteration of opposition leader Sajith Premadas's mobile service initiative took place today at Upadissa Raja Mahavihara in Anuradhapura.
යට වෙනවා කියලා අපේ ගමට ටොයිලට් එකක් හදලා දෙන්නේ, වැවක් හදලා දෙන්නේ, පාරක් හදලා දෙන්නේ. මේ අවුරුදු 11ෙම අපේ සංවර්ධන වැඩ කිසි දෙයක් කරන්නේ නැහැ.
ආණ්ඩුවට දොස් කියන්නේ ආණ්ඩුව මොනවා හරි කරනවා නම් ඒකත් හොඳයි කියලා අපි අගය කරනවා. ඒත් ජනතාවට කොන්ද කෙලින් තියන් නැගිටින්න පුළුවන් විදිහට වැඩ පිළිවෙලක් තමයි හදාගන්න ඕනේ. විපක්ෂයකට කරන්න පුළුවන්.
The scope of work that the opposition can undertake is extremely limited. However, we are ready to wake up a slumbering government. We are ready to lobby the government to address your concerns. I strongly strongly affirm that we will do everything necessary to obtain a decisive response regarding the Malwatoya project from the government with deadlines. There is no plan in place to tackle the human-elephant conflict at the moment. We have a solution with us. However, we make no promises to resolve the matter within a month or two. Furthermore, there is no effective program in place to address concerns stemming from inadequate compensation for crop damage. Similarly, there is no program in place to address issues stemming from inadequate compensation for property damage or the loss of life. To secure compensation over an unfortunate death, one must visit numerous offices and sign so many documents. Through provincial councils, we can provide at least some minor solutions to address your concerns. Those solutions could include a crop insurance policy or some solution to the human-elephant conflict. Not only is it possible, we vow to provide these solutions most definitely off the back of our victory.
Despite the president's humble beginnings, he is now insensitive to the woes of the common man, asserts Sarvajana Balaya leader MP Dilith Jayavira. Addressing a gathering today, Jayavira vows to inspire positive change through the Sarvajana Balaya and its Sarvajana Sabhas, and also pledged to not engage in deceitful politics.
Sarvajana Sabhas of the Heen Panwila and Hiare in the Gaul district took place today under the patronage of Sarvajana Balaya leader, parliamentarian Dilith Jayavira.
Addressing teachers yesterday, the government claimed that it increased teachers' salaries. How was that salary hike funded? The government didn't stumble upon a treasure. Who are they trying to deceive? First, the government promises to hike wages, then they tax the people to fund that additional expenditure. This vicious cycle repeats without an end in sight. President Dissanayaka, who hails from humble beginnings, is someone who should be able to empathize with the common man. However, his legacy now surpasses that of J.R. Jayawardena's. I remember a time when certain political groups issued death threats against former President Jayawardena. When previous regimes deceived the public, we wrote off their failures to the lack of empathy towards the common man. However, no one in the government is oblivious to the struggles of the common man. But they conduct themselves as if they don't understand the common struggle. MPs of the incumbent government, unusually clad in Western clothing, have been ensnared in an incomprehensible mess. This is what we call a puppet regime. This is what we call a weak state. An incompetent group has been propelled to power by Western interests. Those Western interests then move these incompetent officials elected as they please. Nobody on this stage, including myself, wants to be a part of deceitful politics. We will engage in politics that will change your lives. Sarvajana Sabhas are an instrument in that endeavor. We will make you smile.
Welcome back. Now in other local updates, Parliament is scheduled to debate the regulations pertaining to the control of drug prices on the 21st of October. The new Gazette notification containing the regulations was was recently approved by the Ministerial Consultative Committee on Health and Mass Media. The regulatory activities of the National Medicines Regulatory Authority, empowered by the National Medicines Regulatory Authority Act, had been carried out since 2017 but was suspended in December 2023 over an interim injunction issued. A new Gazette notification was issued in August 2024 reintroducing the regulatory system, but that too was challenged in court. Subsequently, the Gazette notification scheduled to be debated next week was published on the 21st of July this year. The National Transport Commission will implement a special bus operation plan for the upcoming long weekend and the Deepavali festival. With the highest passenger demand expected for destinations including Hatton, Valimada, Badulla, Passara, Vaunia and Jaffna, buses issued with road permits will operate at maximum capacity. Buses licensed by the Road Passenger Transport Authority of the Western Province are also expected to be deployed to meet the increased demand. To facilitate passengers returning to Colombo after the long weekend, the NTC has instructed provincial transport authorities in high-demand areas to deploy buses under temporary permits. On your weather-related updates, the Department of Meteorology says that heavy rainfall around 100 millimeters are expected in some provinces across the country. The provinces include the Western, Sabaragamu, Central, Uva, North Central, Eastern and Northwestern provinces. In the meantime, the Met Department also issued an amber advisory warning of severe lightning and thunder showers expected across multiple provinces, including the Central, North Central, Sabaragamu, Uva and Northwestern provinces and in districts including Ampara, Mana and Vaunia. The department advised that there may be temporary localized strong winds during thunder showers and warned to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by lightning activity. Given the current weather situation in the country, the National Building Research Organization also issued Level 2 landslide warnings for 3 districts, including Kandy, Kegal and Matale. The 83rd Medical Clinic series of the medical clinics organized by Manusat Derana, the social responsibility arm of the Derana Media Network, was held today at Sri Vivekarama Temple in Egoda Vavasigiriya. The medical clinic, which focused on early detection of kidney disease and also conducted free blood, cholesterol and lung examinations, while free spectacles were also donated to those in need. Leeson's Hospital Ragama was the main sponsor of the event, while organizational assistance was provided by the donor committee of the Sri Vivekarama Temple. In conjunction with the medical clinic, much-needed equipment was donated to pregnant mothers, while sports equipment was donated to school children. Welcome back. Now the 2025 annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank wrapped up in Washington, D.C. today, with a strong focus on sustaining growth, tackling debt vulnerabilities and supporting developing economies. Sri Lanka, emerging from a major debt restructuring, was highlighted by IMF officials as a country on the path of recovery, with experts urging continued fiscal reforms and strengthening domestic markets to secure long-term stability.
The 2025 annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank kicked off in Washington, D.C. on October 13th, bringing together policymakers, central bankers, development experts and civil society representatives from across the world. This year's meetings unfolded against a backdrop of persistent global challenges, rising inflation, heavy debt burdens, widening climate finance gaps and fragile post-pandemic recoveries, all weighing heavily on growth prospects for both advanced and emerging economies. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva noted that while the global economy has performed better than feared 6 months ago, it remains worse than needed. She cautioned that uncertainty has become the new normal, underscoring the importance of coordinated policy action to stabilize growth and restore confidence. During the plenary sessions, the fund's 191 member countries identified the 3 key priorities for the IMF moving forward. First, members agreed to focus on strengthening policy fundamentals, rebuilding fiscal buffers and reducing policy debt to safeguard macroeconomic stability. Secondly, they emphasized the need to lift growth, unlock private sector potential and enhance productivity, particularly in developing economies struggling to regain pre-pandemic momentum. Thirdly, members called for renewed efforts to narrow external imbalances, stressing the importance of a more balanced and resilient global economy. The meetings also reaffirmed strong support for the IMF's role as a platform for cooperation and dialogue among its diverse membership. Participants commended the fund's ability to convene nations to address pressing global economic issues, from debt sustainability to financial resilience amid an increasingly fragmented world economy. Amid broader discussions on frontier and emerging economies, Sri Lanka featured prominently in IMF briefings during the week. At the Global Financial Stability Report press conference, IMF officials noted that Sri Lanka has been emerging from a debt restructuring process and is on the path to growth and restoring confidence. They further stressed the importance for Sri Lanka to continue improving its fiscal fundamentals, strengthen domestic bond markets and reduce reliance on external borrowing. World Bank and IMF leaders reaffirmed their joint commitment to supporting low and middle-income countries through concessional financing, capacity building and private investment facilitation to ensure a durable recovery. As the week-long sessions conclude, the IMF and World Bank are expected to translate these priorities into actionable policy frameworks aimed at sustaining growth, easing debt vulnerabilities and fostering inclusive global recovery.
In a resounding victory for Sri Lanka, Port City Colombo has been named the best knowledge zone in the Asia-Pacific region at the Global Free Zones of the Year 2025 Awards, organized by FDI Intelligence, a special division of the Financial Times. This prestigious recognition places Sri Lanka's flagship development project among the world's top-performing free zones, alongside leading hubs such as the Dubai Multi-Commodities Center, Cayman Enterprise City and Zona Especial Canaria. The PCC offers fiscal incentives including zero personal income taxes for expatriate employees and exemptions on tax for developers and investing companies. Furthermore, an International Alternative Dispute Resolution Center was also established in a bid to give legal certainty to investors. Sri Lanka has attracted 1.8 million tourists as of the 15th of October 2025 as the country closes in on the target of securing 3 million tourist arrivals this year. 75,657 tourists have arrived in Sri Lanka from the 1st to the 15th of October this year, depicting an increase compared to the same period last year when 63,490 tourist arrivals were recorded.
75,657 tourist arrivals were recorded so far during the month of October this year, with 38,475 tourists visiting the island between the 1st to 7th of October. The highest number of tourist arrivals were recorded on the 1st of October, with 6,751 tourists touching down in Sri Lanka. So far, India remains the top source market for tourism in October, with 20,982 Indian tourists visiting Sri Lanka. In the meantime, China, the United Kingdom and Germany also remained among the other top source markets for Sri Lankan tourism. However, Russian and American tourists, who were among the top source markets in the month of September, were surpassed by tourists from the Netherlands and Japan this month. Meanwhile, earnings from tourism reached $182.9 million in September 2025. Total tourism earnings from January to September 2025 were recorded at $2,472.9 million compared to the $2,348 million accumulated during the same period last year, depicting a 5.3% year-on-year increase. According to data from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, foreign currency reserves were recorded at $6.179 billion as of the end of September 2025.
Now in international business news, China and the United States agreed today to conduct another round of trade negotiations in the coming week as the world's two biggest economies seek to avoid another damaging tit-for-tat tariff battle. Beijing last week announced sweeping controls on the critical rare earths industry, prompting US President Donald Trump to threaten 100% tariffs on imports from China in retaliation. Trump had also threatened to cancel his expected meeting with the Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in South Korea later this month on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. In the latest indication of efforts to resolve their dispute, Chinese state media reports that Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng and US Secretary to the Treasury Scott Bessent had candid, in-depth and constructive exchanges during a Saturday morning call, and that both sides agreed to hold a new round of trade talks as soon as possible. Now in your world news, a high-level delegation from Afghanistan arrived in Doha today for peace talks with Pakistan after the countries extended a ceasefire to their fierce border clashes. Pakistan and Afghanistan yesterday extended the 48-hour truce for the duration of the Doha talks as they seek to resolve the clashes that killed dozens and wounded hundreds over the past week. However, the government in Islamabad has not confirmed its participation in the talks. Yesterday, a suicide attack near the Afghan border killed 7 Pakistani soldiers and wounded 13. Meanwhile, Afghanistan government spokesperson said Pakistan had conducted airstrikes in Afghanistan hours after the ceasefire was extended. He condemned the strikes, saying Kabul reserved the right to respond, but that Afghan fighters had been directed to refrain from retaliating to maintain the status of the ceasefire and respect its negotiating team. The airstrikes killed some local Afghan cricketers, prompting Kabul to announce that its national team will not play a cricket tournament in Pakistan scheduled for November. That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.